Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, my friends, all across the globe today, and welcome back to Sugar Pine Zoo. It has been quite some time since we actually stopped in here, and that's probably for good reason. I have been tirelessly at work trying to get this gosh darn polar bear habitat to actually look good, and I think I can finally say I think I capped off Sugar Pine in the best way possible, especially emphasis on the cap. Get it? Polar cap. Anyways, my name is Leaf. If you guys are new here, welcome. I always love seeing new faces out there in the crowd, and you guys chose a damn good episode to tune into, I'll tell you that much. Today we are actually working on the last habitat in Sugar Pine Zoo, the polar bear habitat. If you haven't really been following us, Sugar Pine Zoo is based off of literally all North American wildlife within the Planet Zoo game. Now, of course, I did kind of like throw some aside. We don't really have a tropical section. I hope you guys can forgive me on that. I wasn't really hoping to do like a big old tropical house. In the meantime, though, we do have that like aquatic center with like the American rivers and stuff like that. So I hope you guys can settle for that for being the warmer climates. But this was made with the North America DLC in mind. It was started the second the DLC dropped, and that was probably one of the best decisions of my life, I'm going to be completely honest. I really did love this zoo. It was really fun to make, and I can really tell that you guys loved it as well. So it was really rewarding to get you guys to stop by and really enjoy yourselves by watching the speed build and all the other speed builds. I don't even know how many episodes we're into the series already, but listen, I appreciate you guys stopping by for even just one or all of them. If you guys stop by for all of them, I love you guys a little bit more, but don't tell the other guys I said that. Now, of course, we should probably talk about what we're actually making here. The whole idea was to have this all centered around this beautiful Arctic expedition. And one of the things I really wanted to do was make this a viewing gallery of a, I guess you could kind of say, defunct ship. Kind of like a shipping ship that is just a double entendre right there. But no, I really wanted to have this based off of this beautiful polar research ship, and I think it comes out really good for a viewing gallery. We both have ramps, and we also have an elevator. Yes, I'm so excited to say that. The alligator habitat, that was just a bad time. Listen, I'm sorry, guys. But the ship came out extremely well. I'm very happy with it. We can actually see me putting it together right now. I think it looks relatively snazzy in the end, but we do kind of mix some stuff up later down the line, and I forget, I think we call it the Borealis. I think that was a very swanky name for that. I think it was either Trico or Bold or someone or Forge. I don't really know, one of those boys, but that's right, Bolt's one of the boys. But either one of them really came up with the name for this boat. Otherwise, it's just really like, I don't know, I'm just very happy with this entire build. Now, with that being said, why did I choose polar bears in here? Well, polar bears are found, like, up in Alaska. They're found up in Greenland, mostly. They're also technically European animals as well, but they're just found, like, all around the caps up there. So, getting these guys as a final episode in Sugar Pine and the lead into the Europe pack was exactly what I wanted. Yes, so that is something we should probably talk a little bit about. The European DLC comes out tomorrow, and I'm curious to hear if you guys are excited as I am, because listen, as it, I don't really know. Sometimes I don't even know what language I'm speaking when I make these voiceovers, but I am extremely excited for it. With everything that we've seen so far, with all the animal reveals, with all the scenery that I can sneakily peek out in the back of those animal reveals, I'm so excited for this pack. It seems like it's going to be a really awesome one as well. And I should probably tell you guys what I'm planning as well for that. I am starting Tiergarten Wilhelmsdorf. It is a German park based right outside of the town of Wilhelmsdorf. It's right on a lake too. I already picked out the perfect map for it, already started terraforming, and it's going to be insane. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to get into all that with you guys. And I also gotta give a quick shout out to Forge once again. If you guys don't know Forge, definitely go check out the Bonita Springs episode. He's a really awesome friend of mine, and he made me this beautiful sign. While I didn't really, get the chance to be the art sensei that Just Goron is, I think it came out relatively good in the end, so we actually have a nice sign to tack onto the entrance of the zoo. So that actually came out pretty good in the end. No complaints there. But he made that sign, and I was like, you know what? I'm too scared to actually start building on the habitat itself that I'm just gonna delay it as long as possible and start building some signage all around the park. And listen, that's something I do want to emphasize to all you builders out there. Listen, even I get scared, right? I have so many series going on, and sometimes I'm just like, okay, instead of doing what I should be doing, I'm gonna do something else. But listen, that something else always helps out. That is, without a doubt, one of the most integral things to learn about building. Listen, I know a lot of the speed builders out there. I know, listen, every single one probably struggles with this at some point. They probably edit out the small things that they do on the side. I don't. I leave it all in here. This is all raw. You get a raw leaf right over here. This is pretty much all the sapling that you need. But with that being said, I really do like emphasizing the fact that I bounce between projects, because it's something that I see even my friends kind of deal with too. They're like, no, I gotta get this done. And I'm like, listen, go build something else. Go build something that will allow your imagination to flow right down the pipe. And listen, the inspiration for the other project that you're already working on will come back to you in no time. And that's something that I always try and stress whenever it comes to these speed builds of the sort. So yeah, that was a little bit of a deep leaf right there. But with that being said, I had a little bit of a struggle party trying to get this pine tree to look good. I'm not a Just Goron. I am nowhere close to Just Goron. So I kind of just opt to use those fan palms, I kind of guess, to make like, it kind of looks like a monkey puzzle tree at the end of it. But I think it looks really good in the end. And we actually plop that up right over here on the side of the zoo, so it looks relatively nice. You know, it welcomes you into Sugar Pine. Still, the entrance isn't one of my favorites. It's something that was, you know, kind of quickly thrown together. But, I don't know, I think it gives it even more charm since we've dealt with it for this long. I don't know, I just really do love how this entire zoo came out. Now, we actually get to work on the habitats. Yes, this is something I, like, really struggle with. Excuse me. I know a lot of people like to watch these speed builds for the habitats. I'm sorry, I'm not that kind of person that jumps right in with the habitat. I gotta build the vibes first. Listen, the vibes are what's most important to me when it comes to making exhibits and making zoos. So I gotta lay down that initial stuff, and then I build the habitat around that afterwards, because theming is such an important part to building my own zoos that without that, I don't know what the hell my zoos are even for in that case. So making sure I get to do that is definitely one of the things that I prioritize on my list. Hell, it might not even be what you prioritize, but that's totally fine. Listen, however you build is how you build, and that's absolutely amazing that you guys are even building in the first place, because you get to flex those creative juices and you get to do exactly what you love the most. Now, with that being said, here I am actually starting on some of the rockwork. The rockwork does not take this precarious later down the line. I essentially work really hard on one group, and I kind of duplicate it all over, and then I patch up those seams that I kind of make it look like, you know, there's kind of like a semi pattern, but later down the line, you don't even notice it at all. So that's something I try and stress about that kind of stuff. And integrating the faux rocks with the natural rocks is something that I love to do as well. It really does help to give it a lot more character, because with an area like this is definitely artificial, without a doubt. There's no if and or but about it. This is absolutely artificial. So making sure that you're able to give that artificial feel is something that is extremely important when it comes to habitats like this. And here I am actually still stressing about building the actual habitat itself, that I start to build planters. Yes, I don't know how to fill out areas well, so I just build planters in the meantime. You can see that throughout this entire zoo, but listen, it all comes together so well in the end. But you know what, sometimes you just gotta get through something, and sometimes you just gotta put on your big boy pants and actually get into the depths of it. But that's not what I'm doing with planters over here. It's just the same thing over and over again. Just putting down planters, putting down planters. Do I ramble a lot? You let me know down below if I ramble a lot, because that's all it feels like I do nowadays. Now here I am just going through the actual exhibits myself, trying to figure out what I want the vibes to be. So we should probably talk about this area in here as well. So I gotta give shout outs to two people over here. I gotta give a shout out to Leader. If you guys haven't seen him, he is probably the most realistic builder you will ever meet. He probably builds zoos more realistic than zoos are in real life. Now, with that being said, he made these wonderful, wonderful, wonderful little sunshades that we actually use for the kind of like underground section, and we'll actually talk about the whole idea behind that in a little bit. But I also gotta give a shout out to Simply Savannah. We will see her shades pop up as well. I know you guys already know about Savannah. Listen, I love Savannah. Her stuff's amazing, so that's why I absolutely love using her blueprints at any chance that I get. And also, just trudging through the rest of this, here I am actually working on this small little viewing gallery. I kind of forgot I even made this viewing gallery, to be honest. It's such a minor point in the exhibit that, listen, I really do like that. I like how minor it is when it comes to the entire exhibit itself. Here I am actually trying to find something. I don't even know what I was looking for. Shipping crates, yes! So that is one of the themes I want to highlight as well. This is exactly the theme that my buddy Crocs is doing in Foxborough Zoo. This is the same theme that Andrew Wyatt did back in Orwell Zoo before he saved over it. Big F in the chat over there for Mr. Andrew Wyatt. I feel so badly because it looks so freaking good. But that's the whole idea that I wanted to go for over here. Not really the most original idea, but it's one that I feel like I can really excel at. Plus, like, what else are you gonna do for polar bears in an area like this? Are you really gonna do like a candy cane village? That actually wouldn't have been a bad idea. I should have done a candy cane village. But with that being said, here we actually are working on the signage over there. Leave a like down below if you see the sussy imposter. Ha ha ha, bing 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 bing. But with that being said, I am working on a sign over here that I don't actually name this area for. The whole idea for this shipping container was for me to put down what I would call this area. So listen, I am shot for ideas. My creative juices have been like squeezed out of my melons. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. But if you guys have an idea for the name of this little area, definitely do let me know down below, because God knows I need all the help that I can get. Now, as we work our way down to that area, one of the things I wanted to have was a bit of a viewing kind of anomaly, I guess you could kind of say. I don't really know the right word for it. But when you're looking down from the top of the ship, here I am actually looking for more American animals. I wanted the effect to be you're looking into an ocean with an ice cap right in the middle of it, and Simply Savannah's shades mixed with Leaders actually give this beautiful effect where it looks like you're looking down into an ocean that's covered in ice. And I feel like it came out so well in the end, and it feels so cool when you're actually walking through this area because it's so shaded, but you still get like these beautiful glimpses of light via the water. I don't know, it just really helps add to the same system, if that makes sense. It came out so incredibly well, and I hope you guys have fun with it. By the way, Blueprint is coming relatively soon for the entire zoo. Yes, I'm putting all of Sugar Pine Zoo on the workshop for you guys all to walk around, to tour, do whatever you want. And if you guys want to, like, you know, absolutely wreck it and make it even worse than it already is, you guys have all the time in the world to do that once you'll actually get it. So keep an eye out for maybe next week, maybe next weekish for the entire tour to come out. I can't wait for you guys to see it. It'll be absolutely amazing. And I do have some other stuff planned going forward after that with Sugar Pine, but you know, I'm gonna keep that hush hush. You guys better not forget about Sugar Pine. Now, with that being said, here I am just giving Savannah's shades a little bit of a leafy flair. I want to have these kind of, outlines? Yeah, that's the word. Good job, Leaf. I wanted to have these outlines of blue on the outskirts of the shades, because that's exactly what I had Leaders have, and I just wanted to continue that vibe throughout the entire thing. So having that beautiful, beautiful outline over there really does help to sell this area, make it feel like it's more underwater, and I think that is exactly what makes this excel in the end. So you can see me doing a lot of general theming in here. You can see me start to actually take a look at the ship and the view from the ship. But you know what? I said screw that. I'm gonna make a kids faux gold panning mine. I don't even know. Bold, let me know what I called it in the comments down below, or what you called it rather, because you were the one who had the idea for that. I want to have this little area for the kids to actually go and mine for gold And, like, you know, their parents would pay $5 for them to go mine for gold, pan for gold, whatever. And these beautiful, like, little, I guess you could call them little water spurts, water fountains, I don't really know. But the idea is that the kids would go there and figure out what it was like to pine for gold back in the olden days when Alaska was opened up to the big old gold rush and whatnot. So, moving on from there, we are actually dressing up a little bit more of the area. I can't remember if I actually start on the habitat. No, I don't start on the habitat for a while. I just get this general kind of rock work done first and foremost, just so I kind of get more open to the idea of the habitat. Sometimes I try and trick myself where it's like, hey Leaf, listen, just place down a few blocks here and there. Listen, it won't be bad. Listen, trust me. But sometimes I just absolutely give up on that. And I'm like, no, screw that. I'm too scared. One of the other things to mention as well, I don't do it just yet, but I do make these pools have a little bit of a plaster bottom. That is something that I did over at the start of the zoo, kind of gave up towards the middle, but I do start that again back over here, kind of capping things off relatively well, because when you have big pools like this, they would never be real water sources. Instead, they'd be controlled, especially for polar bears, where they are relatively marine animals. You would probably want to salinate the water a little bit more as a ways to kind of make them feel a lot more comfortable, make them feel a lot more at home. And especially with this zoo being based in Maine, it'd be a lot easier to get, you know, water sources, like a lot easier. In terms of salt water, we could pretend it's like, you know, right on the coast, probably right near Portland or something. I don't really know. It's my zoo, but I'm not really gonna dictate the law all that much. The zoo can speak for itself. Now, with all that being said, working a little bit more on this little bit of a viewing gallery, and look at that, we're already done with it. Can you believe that? No, I just made the cut right there. And here we actually work on that gold panning area, and you can see me really start to take into account how to make this work, and I really want running water in here. So I actually make a little place for, you guessed it, a vent. Yes. Listen, I know this is quite a good event, you know how it goes, but I feel like this is probably the best place to put it, and I work on a little bit more support beams and stuff like that right under it, just as ways to kind of make it feel a lot more fleshed out. I don't know, I think it came out pretty swell in the end. But once we get those vents all taken care of, I just make sure to get the water all set and kind of just hide the rest of those ugly rims with a little bit more rocks. Just make sure it looks nice and natural in the end. Just, you know, just dressing everything up. And I also incorporate maybe some faux rocks. Actually, no, I wanted to find a way to get some more gravel kind of textures in there because, you know, oftentimes at those little panning for gold sections, you would see a lot more kind of like other kinds of rocks, but there really was no proper way for me to integrate that. So I kind of opt out of that. Not really sure, you know, like, it's fine. We can get over that. So I see a lot of hate for the Arctic Pack recently, and I feel like people aren't using it right, because using the Arctic Pack all around the zoo, it came out so amazing, and I feel like people don't appreciate the pieces for what they can really accomplish, because they have this beautiful rustic theme. Like, yeah, I will say, I will want the Arctic Pack to be flexicolor. That would have been like the perfect thing to incorporate, but unfortunately, you kind of have to make do with the pieces, but when you do use them in the right way, they come out so beautiful, and that's exactly why I loved using those for this like tiny little mining operation over here. The whole idea was to kind of have this beautiful big Arctic town, kind of like big old mining shanty town or something like that, but unfortunately it didn't really pan out all that well. Get it? Pan out because it's a panning for gold section. Now, with that being said though, I have a little staff access right over there. I don't actually put a door there, so that's something I'm gonna need to do in like a fixer-upper. But just dressing up the rest of the section, because I can't be asked to make even more buildings for this section when I'm already burnt out of this park as it is. So I just kind of dress it up with foliage and call it a day right there. I have a few different areas for guests to kind of access this area, because since it is a kids section, it should be relatively open so parents can keep an eye on their kiddos. So just making sure that it's relatively open, making sure it's like able to be seen, able to be accessed from all areas. That's exactly why I wanted to incorporate right there. As well as getting the rest of the rocks in place and just general theming all around is something that I really want to accomplish. And using these small like baubles and like Arctic festive items. I feel like that really helped to bring this entire area up just a little bit more. And I think it comes out extremely well in the end. And we actually call it Sugar Mine in the end. I know it's typed down Sugar Pine Mine, but it's Sugar Mine in the end. You guys can trust me. So that is what happens right over there, and I genuinely have no idea what I do. I guess I put some borders on this path, just so guests, don't step where they're not supposed to step. I'm scared to open this part to guests, actually, because I've used Kai's free build mod for so many things, and it just wonks out with the guests. I have no idea how I could get that to be fixed, but adding some more bear signage all over the place just to remind people what the animal is at the end of this entire trek. And just making sure everything else fits nicely as I keep on installing from the actual, wow, I sound like I'm from North Dakota or something, from the actual animal exhibits, because God knows I don't want to start on those. So one of the things I also did want to integrate over here were some different areas for viewing platforms, and one of the things I did over here were just a few glimpses into this tiny little straightaway where the polar bears can kind of like walk in a little bit more of a forested area. I know people often think of polar bears as habitating in the ice caps, which they do for the most part, but sometimes they may go into like slightly forested areas, kind of like, that subarctic zone. I guess that kind of makes sense. So they would kind of be found in locales like that, and that's something I did want to stress out with this exhibit as well. So just generally getting all that stuff to look good was pretty fun to do. And I actually do some custom fences over here just to make sure it's all climb proof, because you wouldn't want polar bears to escape. That'd be really awful. I mean, I remember this polar bear, my buddy Sam was just telling me about this one. Its name was Binky. What a stupid name for a polar bear, right? But it escaped from the Alaska Zoo. Well, it didn't escape. The guests actually went in there. So, technically a Planet Zoo would call it escaped. But it mauled 2 people. A zoo bear mauling 2 people. That's absolutely amazing to see. You'll love to see it, absolutely. It's just crazy to think that people would actually try and get that close to a polar bear. I think some of the kids were actually trying to get into the polar bear pool so they could actually swim in it. Why would you? There's I'm sure there's better pools to swim in, boys. But with that being said, no one was killed, so that's fine. But moving on from there, here we're just making sure the rest of the exhibit looks good. And I do have to give a quick little shout out to Mr. Forge again as well. He made a beautiful little aviary that we actually use down the line, and we'll get that integrated shortly soon. I forget when he actually gets it to me, but we'll start to see that get integrated soon enough. And that's one of the things that I am very thankful for, because I really did want to have an aviary for, stellar sea eagles or something like that, but I was extremely lazy, and I was like, listen, please, Forge, help me. I need help desperately. So that's exactly what I did. What an amazing friend right there. And one of the things I also do is neglect to actually make any keeper areas for the polar bears. I'm just gonna let that off my chest right here as well, because I was extremely lazy when it came to this build. Listen, it was 8 hours worth of work condensed into an hour-long video. Oh my gosh, it's gonna be such a hell to talk through this entire thing. But in the end, I feel like you guys will appreciate it nonetheless. You can take shortcuts wherever you feel like you need to. Listen, no shame in that, But with that being said, here I actually go back to working on those little viewing areas I was talking about before. I really do love how well these came out, because once you actually do see the polar bears kind of walking past here, it looks insane to see. It's kind of like taking a glimpse into nature, because that's something that the underwater viewing doesn't really accomplish. When you're looking into underwater viewing, you're like, okay, yeah, fine, I'm at a zoo. But when you see them up there, right up in the mountains through this small kind of fence area, you're like, damn, I feel like I'm out in the wild right now. I feel like I'm actually seeing these bears. And that's something I really loved, kind of incorporating. So that was really fun to do. And of course, over here, I start to work on our first little glimpse into the polar bear life. Here I actually work on getting this little area kind of suited for viewing the polar bears. And it just so happened that the polar bear was right in front of where I wanted the viewing area to be. So I kind of just based it around that. And I think it came out relatively swell in the end. This is also one of the only areas where I actually did integrate like the snow rocks with the rest of like, you know, the habitat area and like fences and stuff like that. So maybe later down the line I will go back and touch that up, but for the time being, listen, sugar pine is done. I have set it out to pasture. That is pretty much all we're doing with that baby right there. But, you know, later down the line we may want to visit back here with, you know, maybe some mods or something. I don't know, get some more animals in here. I know we're missing out on a lot of really awesome North American animals, and we didn't even use up all the map. I kind of covered up the rest of the map with mountains, so maybe later down the line we could actually make some branching off trails that lead to new sections. Who knows? You know, the whole world is our oyster. And speaking of oyster, we actually work on this underwater section coming up over here. I really wanted to have it feel a lot more beachy, kind of like, yeah, kind of beachy, but like northern beachy. So not really like your beautiful sand and stuff like that. I wanted it to be kind of rocky, aggressive, and kind of dirty. So I use a lot of the Triordia grass from the Australia pack, which really does help to give it a little bit more of a weedy kind of look. And I make sure to integrate as many rocks as possible. I make sure that this is rocky as heck. It's so rocky that, you know, we'll start screaming out for, oh god, I haven't seen Rocky in so long. I feel so badly, but you know, it's fine, it's fine. Now, of course, over here, one of the things I wanted to do, as I said before, was integrate a little bit of a plaster bottom. So I do a little bit of a trim all around the habitat, and I actually start using these beautiful pieces from the North Africa pack, these beautiful big concrete, well, I guess they're plaster pillars, and I just keep on repeating those over and over and over again until they cover up the entire bottom of the pool. And we actually do brighten that up just a little bit, so it all looks even bluer from the sky. And I feel like that's a really awesome trick that not a lot of people do anymore, because we do have the flexi color water, which, oh my gosh, that still boggles my mind to this day that we finally have that. I can't imagine like building habitats back in the day without that. That would have been so awful. But moving forward, we're actually just getting the rest of the habitat fixed up, making sure everything looks beautiful. And we repeat the same thing on the other side as well, making sure that these are kind of like twin pools, because I failed to mention before that these are actually separate habitats. We have one polar bear habitat and another polar bear habitat, but the way that I kind of wanted to integrate it, especially with that ice flow right in the middle, was to give it the illusion that they were part of the same habitat, and I think it really, really does help to sell it in the end. Of course, you know, human logic would dictate, yeah, I know that they aren't the same habitat, what gives? But listen, it just helps to give out the effects so much better in the end. And I actually integrate some vents over here with some bubbles, and I think it comes out really nice. It really does help to make it feel a lot more active, make it feel a lot more lively inside the water, because, you know, you can't really get interspecies enrichment with polar bears, unfortunately. Believe me, I've tried. But no, it's just, I really wanted to bring so much more to this exhibit to life, because obviously sometimes the polar bear won't be underwater all the time. Sometimes he'll be on the land. But if you're underwater and you're just looking into the exhibit and it looks boring, what the hell? Like, you know, you paid all this money to come to Sugar Pine Zoo, you paid the $100 entrance tax, and then you're like, oh my gosh, like, where are all the animals? So at least livening up the exhibits is something that I really want to integrate right there. And I can't believe I didn't even talk about the foliage work that I did in here. This is like the most proud I've been of my foliage work in such a long time, and I just completely went over it. And one of the things I did want to touch up on was the fact that, you know, a lot of people tend to think of these like polar bears as living in like, you know, these very cold, icy environments, but I really want to accentuate that Alaska isn't just all snow. It has forests. It has beautiful, beautiful forests and foliage and stuff. And that's something that I really wanted to emphasize right over here as well. So from Maine to Alaska, it looks beautiful. One of the things I also integrated right here was this big old water tower, and I actually had to change out the paths a little bit to account for it, but it serves as a really nice centerpiece for this tiny little section over here, and making sure the rest of the foliage as well kind of flows relatively nicely in here. It really does help to add the entire vibes all together, and you know what? It just comes out extremely well in the end. I can't believe I've been talking for like half an hour now. This is insane. But listen, what better time to stop and thank you guys for even watching this video. I know a lot of people tend to get a little bit overwhelmed when they see an hour-long video, but I do appreciate you guys stopping by nonetheless, especially if you're listening right now. Listen, comment Among Us down below if you guys are watching right over here, okay? It'll be our little secret. I'll know who are the real ones. Now, moving forward, of course, adding a lot more foliage in here with some dead trees as well, just to really make it feel a lot more alive in here, as well as some more flowers, because one of the things that people tend to love about Alaska in the summertime is how beautiful the wildflowers are, and I really wanted to accentuate that in this exhibit as well. And forgive me right now, I just gotta grab a drink of water because my throat is like dry as a desert. That's some good old leaf ASMR right there. Speaking of desert, did you know that Antarctica is a desert? I know we're not really on Antarctica right now, but listen, I just wanted to flex that right there. Of course, we are doing the rest of the foliage around the main path areas because I am too scared to do the actual animal ones. Yeah, so you guys may notice that with a lot of my recent speed builds recently, I'm so scared to even touch the animal habitats. I care so much more about the guest experience and theming. I know I keep on harking back to that, but that's literally my favorite aspect of building in Planet Zoo. It's not even the animals, it's the fact that I get to make these beautiful themes and these beautiful set pieces and these wonderful little experience for people to kind of trot through. So that's always something I love doing, and here I am using that Triordia grass all throughout the entire exhibit just to really help sell those, you know, kind of rocky coast vibes. You would definitely see a lot of plants and wildlife, not wildlife, but, you know, shrubbery kind of like that. Also, I need a lot more water. I'm so sorry, guys. Listen, you guys are real ones, so you can forgive me for this. And I'm not even gonna pause the audio. Now, with all that being said, one of the things I do like to pop in here is always check out how my exhibits look from the first-person mode. Of course, I am using Kai's first-person mod, which always helps a lot to just instantly go right into Tegid Cam mode. It is insanely helpful. If you guys are afraid of mods, listen, I understand you completely, but I don't even count that as a mod. I call that a hotkey cheat. So that is definitely something I do recommend right there. But here we actually are working on the other exhibit from the bottom up. Yes, one of the things I like to do at first is work on the actual underwater part because it's relatively easy. I usually start these beautiful little palettes at first with these, you know, different plants and stuff. I use moss with a mix of the hydrilla grass to kind of make it feel like it's a decrepit old kind of pool, or at least it hasn't been washed down in a little bit, because with these pools you would definitely see like keepers draining them and every so often kind of like spray them down. But we can just build in the sense of lore that they have not done that for a very, very long time. And because of that, it looks a lot better in Planet Zoo. It might not look better in real life, but hey, it looks good in this game because it looks like I put more effort into it. Hell yeah. Now, of course, using the Drin grass as always, this Drin grass, we can talk about that for a little bit because it is a lifesaver when it comes to these habitats. No matter what biome you're in, this is the perfect little piece for you. And I think it comes out extremely well in the end. Now, talking more about what we're doing right here, we're just basically getting this outline over here of the water, and in that we also outline the trotting paths of the animals, because oftentimes in zoos you would see, in like when you're speaking a lot more realistically, you would see animals pacing from one area to the other. Unfortunately, that is a little bit of a problem in zoos, but zoos have been trying to fight back against that and give animals a lot more comfortable habitats, which is always awesome. But still, in small areas kind of like this, where, you know, we have one kind of like sliver of land, you would see a lot of that central path be kind of beaten down by polar bears, especially considering how heavy they are and, you know, they might drag their paws a little bit. You would definitely see a lot of the grass kind of be worn down over time, and that's exactly the effect that I really want to give right there, and I think it comes out extremely well. I know it's not exactly the nicest thing for the bears, but it looks really good in the end, so you know what, who can complain? Also, one of the things I did not realize before I started this was the fact that we have so little room. We're literally on the edge of the map. So one of the things I really want to accentuate was the fact that it's just forest beyond that habitat. So one of the things I actually do is work with the terrain later down the line and fix that up so the sight lines are not tarnished by untampered land. Now, one of the things that Forge and Trico really wanted me to do was kind of integrate these path benches just as ways to kind of give this area a little bit more purpose, especially when it's like, you know, a nice hot day. You need a cool place to kind of sit down, especially when you're watching the polar bears swim. So having these areas under the sunshades was perfect, and it all worked out extremely well, especially considering like the sun theme. And one of the things that Forge told me to do was put a Coca-Cola vending machine in there because of course we need Coca-Cola right with our polar bears. We could pretend that they sponsored this exhibit or something. I don't know. One of the things I also wanted to do was use these cladding pieces to really help give this area a little bit more of a purpose and give it a little bit more of a theme. So having this rocky area kind of go throughout these benches and stuff, I think it really does help to sell the vibe that this is all underwater as well. And I don't know, I'm just very happy with it. Also carrying on the tradition of these like bins and recycling bins and trash bins and stuff like that. That's something I wanted to do down here as well, because we do have that vending machine down there. I did want to emphasize, like, hey, you put your trash down here. This is exactly what you do, yada yada. Oh my gosh, we're almost at the end. That's wild. Oh my gosh, it was such a pleasure being with you guys, but we still have so much longer to go. How much more do we have? I'm actually quite curious. We have about 10 minutes left, so that's actually pretty fun. So working on a lot more of this beach theme on the other end of the habitat is something I wanted to do as well. Just making sure that this entire theme, all this foliage palette, gets carried on throughout this entire exhibit, making sure it carries on throughout this entire guest area. It really does help to sell this more holistic zoo experience that I see a lot of zoos opting for nowadays, especially with like San Diego with Africa Rocks, or like San Diego with literally any other of their areas. Just making sure that you have these big experiences where it feels like you're transported to a different area. I think that is probably my favorite part of theming. It really does, I don't know, it's always really fun. Now, moving on through here, also adding a lot more plants and flowers so that this area feels a lot more brighter, because after you, some point, once you do work with a lot more like greener, kind of yellowish plants, you kind of get the same color palette after a while, and from above it just kind of looks like puke. So getting those flowers in there really does help to sell the vibes a lot more. And finishing up the interior of this exhibit, I know like the entire point of Planet Zoo is to build exhibits. I just build the areas around the exhibits at this point. The exhibits are like a secondary priority for me. But I essentially just get that all fixed up as well, just make sure everything looks nice, making sure it looks great for our polar bear friends as well, and making sure that it looks amazing from this area up here, because that sight line is probably the most important thing that I could integrate within this habitat, and I think it comes out splendid in the end. Also, those diamond leaf willow bushes, those are literally my favorite plants now. I love using those, even more than the drin grass, because it just has this beautiful color to it. One of the things I would love to see are flexicolor like plants as well, because I would love to see a lot more creativity come into play with a lot more foliage, and just getting dynamic foliage kind of like that would be a godsend as well. Also over here, this is probably my least favorite part of the exhibit. This is the entire rock wall of this entire rock facade. I am no Rudy Renkimo when it comes to like, the big old Yosemite Valley rock wall. But I think this came out relatively good in the end because of the strategies I used to kind of implement hiding a lot more of the repeating textures, if that makes sense. And that's something that I really want to emphasize as well. Listen, take shortcuts. You guys can take as many creative shortcuts as you can, because trust me, when it all comes down to it, you're just putting stuff on top of other stuff anyways. So you might as well just hide the bad stuff with some good stuff, if that makes sense, alright? That's the stuff I'm talking about. So I add these, what are these, hawthorn bushes? Or I think these are the manzanita bushes. So I actually have these kind of overlap the cliff a little bit and have it kind of falling off. So it's kind of like a little bit of a landslide, if that makes sense. I'm not really sure. But I just use it as generally bushy decor. and I actually turn it into big spheres, which I use to cover up these larger areas. And I kind of have it growing up the wall as well, so it's not really just a one-sided thing. It's a more holistic thing, if that all makes sense. Now, what else do I add over here? I add these arrowwood bushes, which give it a little bit more of a darker green color. The kind of yellowish green really wasn't really settling for me, so I wanted to darken it a little bit. It's very much like painting. Listen, guys, excuse me, I know I keep on saying I love Bob Ross in my exhibits. That is one of the things I love the most about Planet Zoo. It's just your ability to do stuff like that, and it always comes out amazing in the end. So listen, don't be afraid to put stuff on top of other stuff, mix stuff up. It always looks amazing in the end. And of course, we go back to the small stuff as well. I work my way up, as I said before. So working my way on the bottom of this exhibit with all that lovely drin grass. We are just about to finish up that entire exhibit before we move on to the last of the decorations and the theming of Sugar Pine Zoo altogether. So I wanted this to be really, really nice. So of course, doing layer after layer, drain grass after crowberry bush, after hawthorn bush, after whatever. We throw the white sage in there a little bit for a little bit more of an Arctic flair. Maybe it looks a little bit like frosted tips, if that makes sense. I don't really know. But it looks really good from the guest perspective as well, and that's what's extremely important when it comes to my style of builds. Also integrating some more faux rocks in here is kind of like pebbles, just as a way to kind of heighten this exhibit sense of adventure a little bit. So I think that all comes out extremely well in the end. I think it looks very, very neat, and we kind of integrate that within the water source as well, so it really helps to feed into the same experience. And we just dress up the rest of the habitat as well, just give it a little bit more purpose, give it a little bit more of a wild kind of flair, because of course I like to build my areas a lot more naturalistic. My computer is dying, so I'm gonna be a little bit more quiet for a little bit. I do apologize. But just getting the rest of the foliage in here, it's so nice to finally see me finish up a zoo. That's something I did want to mention before. I've never finished a zoo before. I've started smaller zoos with the intention of finishing them before. But listen, I've never actually finished a zoo before, so this is just a very big moment for me. I'm very excited about it. I'm like rambling all over the place, but I know you guys probably love that. So adding over here just the rest of that terraforming, as I said before, to really make it feel like these sightlines are natural, these sightlines organic, and just doing the rest of the theming as well. I add these little bit of floats for the polar bears, and I kind of chain them down below with like these cinder blocks. I think that was really fun to make as well. So just making sure that this entire experience really does flow together. Get it? Because ice flow, haha. I don't know, I was very happy with how this entire habitat came out, and I'm really happy that you guys sticked around for like this entire video. I know this was a little bit of a daunting task to take on, especially me, who has to talk through the entire thing, which was, it's really fun. But with that being said, here we are actually working on the very last part of this entire speed build. I do a map of Greenland on the kind of plaza down here, and I think it came out pretty swell as well, because I don't know, I feel like not a lot of people talk about Greenland, and I just really want to integrate a little bit of that in here as well. So listen, Just Goron, if you're watching, listen, please, I want you to roast me for how awful this sign is, because I know you're the master at this stuff. I want you to tell me how awful of a job they did with this. But listen, it was just a really fun project to take on. Probably it was supposed to be sloppy. We'll just throw that into the sugar pine lore right there. But in the end, it was really, really awesome put together, and I don't know, it was just a really fun idea to kind of integrate and execute, if that makes sense. Also, who allowed Greenland to be this shape? Who allowed Greenland to have like all these jutting areas and stuff like that? Because that's just not right. Why can't they be like a nice simple circle or like square island? That would have been perfect for me. But no, nature just decided, hey, we're just gonna make this look like a bunch of spaghetti was thrown at the wall. Yeah, that's the perfect idea for Greenland. Good job, Mother Nature. Now, with all jokes aside, it was really fun to make this entire kind of art piece. and I think it really does help to sell the area a lot more. Unfortunately, this is something that I noticed after I built it. The font pieces do disappear after you get a certain like area away from the actual font pieces. So I do throw one of Simply Savannah's shades right over it just as ways to just as a ways to kind of hide my blunder right there. That really wasn't like one of the smartest moves on my part, but hey, listen, it works when you're right up there. It works when you're sitting right there. I do throw some benches and areas for guests to sit down right over there, so it's a nice little meeting point for your guests. And I do add these just groups of font pieces, just make sure it all looks good. Listen, this is definitely piece count heavy, so listen, you guys better like have a jet engine of a computer before loading into the zoo. I know I don't even have it, but my computer is like yelling at me whenever I load in here. I still gotta record the cinematics for, you know, what you're about to see in like probably 5 minutes or so. So yeah, wish me luck when I actually do load up back in there. I'll actually load back in there right now, with that being said. But all things considered, it was a really fun project, and I guess we could talk a little bit about, like, you know, my sugar pine thoughts. I was very happy to do this too. I know I looked back and I saw that the prairie dog habitat has a total of 4,000 views. That is really awesome to see. I gotta thank you guys all so much for stopping by. Even on that video alone, I know it wasn't really the best habitat out there, but it was really fun to make like that whole underground section happen nonetheless. Whew! Now, what do I work on over here? I do the very last thing for this plaza. I do a little bit of a different color area. I want to have it be kind of dark, with Greenland being absolutely white, because it looks very nice juxtaposed with all the darkness around it. I think it looks pretty swell in the end. And of course, doing the last of the updates all around the zoo, adding these little signage areas by Lion. If you guys haven't already seen his stuff, go check it out. The blueprints, if you just look up modular blueprints, you'll be able to find those, and they're lifesavers when it comes to zoos, kind of like that. So definitely do give that some love. Oh my gosh. Woo! What else do we go on from here? We add a little bit more foliage as well, just kind of making this entire area feel a lot better. One of the things I do struggle with, you can kind of see me pausing for a smidge right after I place something down near that reindeer house. Do keep in mind, this is like 9 times speed of a speed build right now, so those pauses were like ages long. So that's kind of what happens when you put too many pieces together in a group, and when you put it next to each other, it's just all traversable area, and every single time you put down something right there, it needs to recalculate it. So that was a little bit of an annoyance right there, but all things considered, I say it was worth it to place down those bushes, especially everything in the zoo. It was very worth it to make this entire zoo all together. There's the actual aviary. I don't even think I saw it get placed down, but yeah, it just ended up right there. You could, of course, go down the polar area. By the way, definitely do let me know down below what you would name the area if you guys are even listening at 4 minutes and 15 seconds in the video. Let me know what you guys would name it, because I am absolutely done with ideas. So if you guys have any names, I'll make a cute little sign for it. And then we could have it, like, you know, in a tour later down the line. Maybe we could have like a Christmas special. Who knows? Now, with that being said, just adding the rest of the foliage over here, adding this little bit of a roof for the actual boat itself, because I was never really a big fan of that big area kind of like pointing out of the boat. When I just make it work for what it is, I really wanted to have it be like a hyper realistic boat, but I think having it look kind of jank, having it look kind of like haphazard, really does help to add to the vibes of this zoo. You know, it probably doesn't have the biggest budget, but they make do with the budget that they have and the big additions that they can make. So adding the rest of Mr. Tovez's walls, or fences, I guess you could really call them, over there as well, and adding that small section of the reindeer house itself, just to make sure everything can flow together nicely, and making sure to branch off the rest of the guarded area, I guess you can kind of say, because right behind there we do have the bison pronghorn exhibit, and that is an exhibit that you do not want guests to go right into. So that's pretty good to protect them against that. Adding the rest of the details all around here, adding maybe a polar bear statue, maybe not. Oh yeah, I love this area right over here. I wanted to section off this area of the boat for something else, but for the time being, we just throw a bunch of boat trash on there. That's a new trademark right there. I'm going to trademark that, boat trash. But adding Just Goron's barrel right there, a few different benches, adding some trash. I know that trash pack was by Crocs. Just making sure everything looks really nice over there, and adding those pallets, making sure even those tires give it a little bit more dynamic action, I guess that makes sense. It just came out incredibly well, and making sure guests can sit up there was the icing on the cake, if I do say so myself. Adding another vending machine up there as well. I forgot to actually put the cover up there, so that was a little bit of a shame, but adding the elevator as well. We've come full circle, guys. It's crazy. Now, with that being said, we are entering our B-roll right now. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate you guys stopping by to, you know, even check out one or all the episodes of Sugar Pine Zoo. I really do appreciate you guys stopping by nonetheless. It was a really awesome...